I'm making this video as a response for RWBY fans clamoring over the merits or lack thereof of RWBY Volume 4. Now, as I have opined in numerous videos and podcasts, I quite like this volume, but this is going to focus more on broad plot points and compare to what many still consider the best volume of the show, Volume 3. Now, there's two main reasons I can see for people preferring Volume 3. 1. More plot-relevant stuff happens, and 2. There's greater action scenes. As for those who prefer Volume 4, their two main points are there's a tighter, more focused narrative, and a greater emphasis on character moments. All these points are worthy of their side, but let's start with the big picture. I said in my finale review that because of how the series is planned and paced, Volume 3 needed to be more satisfying. In Doctor Who terms, Volume 3's finale had to be like the end of time, Volume 4's finale had to be like the Big Bang. Volume 3 just had more stuff going on by sheer virtue of being the conclusion of a lot of plot points, whereas Volume 4 was the beginning of new plot lines. Volume 3 had the Vital Festival, the Cinder's Plan, the return of Adam, the Maidens, the fall of Beacon, the reveal of Salem and Silver Eyes, the introduction of Crow and Winter, Velvet's Box, and a whole smorgasbord of new superfluous characters. Volume 4, even before any of the episodes were properly scripted, only had Ranger traveling to Mistral, Weiss spending time at home, Blake going to Menagerie, and Yang recovering. Adding with it the reveal of the relics, introduction of more villains, Ren and Nora's backstory, and a bit of Raven. They decided early on that Volume 4 would end with Team Ranger arriving at Mistral, and everyone else heading that way. The work came with giving everyone a plotline to hold them over. This makes Volume 4 feel a bit like filler. All the important stuff is in the second half, same with Volume 3. The difference is that Volume 4 makes a smoother transition into the second half. I mean, sort of. Smooth is a relative term when your writers don't understand the purpose of establishing a time frame. The major plot threads are actually introduced in episodes 2 and 3. Each of these stories are self-contained and do little for the overarching story of RWBY. Ranger needs to reach Mistral, but there's also the new Clavi. Tyrion is used primarily to remind everyone of the bigger plot and facilitate Crow coming to aid Ranger, which leads to the introduction of the relics, and then putting him on the sideline so Ranger can do their fight against the Grimm. Weiss needs to get away from her father, but she also needs to try to keep him happy enough so she can get her inheritance. So she agrees to the concert, but she stands up for her honor and the honor of her school and makes a scene, thus her inheritance is taken away. Now, with literally nothing to gain or lose and staying there, she leaves. Blake's story is only the worst thing in the history of ever in execution. Her motives are dumb and exactly what everyone thought they were. Her goal is even dumber and runs counter to her actions. She stupidly reveals herself to the White Fang, so they send Ilya. Blake refuses to listen to Sun, so she throws his scroll, hits Ilya, chases after her for no reason, kicks her scroll out of her hand, and on that scroll is all the information needed to convince Blake that she needs to stop running and take the fight to the White Fang. And now that I've said that out loud, I hate this stupid arc even more. Yang gets the short end of the stick. She has PTSD, she gets a robot arm. She still doesn't get over it. She realizes that her own stubbornness is putting RWBY in more danger, and she gives it a try. Over some time, she thinks she's ready, but we won't know if she is until future volumes. Compared to that to Volume 3, the first two episodes are non-stop fights, none of which do anything to further the story. Episode 3 only sets up tensions between Vale and Atlas that never actually pay off. Episode 4 does nothing except establish genetic semblances and summoning, but not Jacques marrying into the family. Episode 5 is even worse and only has one fight with zero relevance to the story. Episode 6 introduces the Maidens and frames Yang, but with the two episodes after that, you gotta wonder what purpose it served because it did nothing. Episode 7 is a flashback yet refuses to have anything regarding Cinder's goal or motive. Episodes 8 through 12 are the only ones with any relevance, and most of that is thanks to the Maidens, which were thrown in as one of Monty's last ever thoughts, need I remind you. As a singular entity with the goal of let's go to Haven, Volume 4 does a better job than Volume 3 does at being the tune-in exams. Fight scenes are a little tricky to talk about because there's a lot that goes into one, and everyone looks for something different. Setting, circumstances, power scaling, choreography, emotion, staging, all of them are simple aspects that go into a fight scene. After Monty's death, there was a drop in quality within the choreography and staging of action scenes, but it made up for it in sound design, emotion, and best of all, circumstances. And Volume 4 actually carried on this trend of high-stakes action scenes. For a comparison, 11 out of 12 episodes in Volume 3 featured action scenes ranging from petty squabbles, tournament fights, and the massive gauntlet of grim fights and power duels that made up the last 3 episodes. Only 6 out of 12 episodes in Volume 4 had action scenes. 3 of them were 1v Team Grim fights, 2 of them were the extensive Tyrion fight, and the other one had a training scene and this pile of hot garbage. Volume 3 was focused on action, and of the multitude of action scenes, only a handful of them were worth a damn. Whereas I only actively hated one action scene in Volume 4. Volume 4 was about character moments. All the stupid stuff with Blake served the singular purpose of forcing her to get over herself. The Tyrion stuff continued the larger plot. The new Clavi existed only to give a climax and bring Ren and Nora's arc closer. The 2 grim fights earlier in the volume served to further the world building by letting the characters work off each other and showing Huntsman in the typical Huntsman circumstances. All I'm saying is that you didn't get any kind of camaraderie or teamwork in the first 2 volumes. Something that bugs me about Volume 3 is how distant any character is from caring about the tournament. There's no goal, no endgame, no prize, no reason to care so much about victory. All the characters just sit on the sidelines and give the odd comment about the fight. In Naruto this happened too, but the characters got invested. They had a reason to fight. If there's no reason for them to care about the tournament, then why should we? And these were supposed to be the highlights of the first half of the volume. And the second half only has episode 8 to show the characters interacting in it. Blast through potential arcs so fast it makes Yang's recovery arc feel like an entire volume of Full Metal Alchemist. Volume 4's first half highlights are stuff like RWBY watching Jean train, Blake getting mad at Sun, Crow talking with Raven. And instead of stopping the whole fight to give a lengthy explanation or dialogue scene, the fight goes on while characters have their personal moments. This is doubly true as the volume picks up pace in the second half. People need to just understand bigger isn't always better. Volume 4 by nature isn't going to be as satisfying as Volume 3, but for what it's worth, it did a better job with its meager ambitions than Volume 3 did with its grandiose ones. I do think Volume 4 is a better volume. It served its purpose admirably, and there's only one thing I hate about it instead of the 3 or 4 things I hate about Volume 3. It culled the herd. It put focus where it needed to. Everyone important had their moments, and those moments mattered. But that's just me, and as I've said before, I think that RWBY should just drop the pretense and become a Freak of the Week series. Either way, Volume 4 was a step in the right direction. I hope they keep moving forward. Thanks for watching.